Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 DocLands Documentary Film Festival. I'm Michelle Svenson from the programming team, and I'm here with producer Sara Bernstein to talk about her film, We Feed People. Sara Bernstein is co-president of Imagine Documentaries, founded by director Ron Howard and film TV producer Brian Grazer. Sara's impressive body of work has garnered numerous awards, including 2 Academy Awards, 10 Emmy wins, 11 Peabodys, and countless other nominations. Citizen4, Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief, Rebuilding Paradise, and Kurt Cobain, Montage of Heck are just a few of the film titles she's produced. Welcome, Sara. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was a really extraordinary film about an extraordinary human. I even just saw on the news last night, they were saying that World Central Kitchen has now been to 80 sites in the Ukraine so far, helping feed people. Yes. How did you come to tell his story? At what point did y'all know that this was the moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's incredibly powerful and, impressive and again, incredibly just courageous what World Central Kitchen and José Andrés are doing right now in and around the Ukraine. This project started really with our director, Ron Howard, and he had met José several years ago. And struck up, sort of a friendship or relationship with José. I think was incredibly just curious about this evolving organization of his, World Central Kitchen, which, of course, was in a very different place several years ago than it is today. And at the same time, we were coming off of Ron's last documentary, Rebuilding Paradise, which we had produced with Nat Geo Films. And we were, trying to think of, well, what would be a great sort of issue project for Ron to dive into next. And frankly, is there one that maybe we could do with Nat Geo Films, our collaborator? And Nat Geo had a very strong interest in José, had been following sort of his career and certainly kind of the evolution of this organization. So it was this perfect, kind of storm of relationships. And I think because of Ron's relationship with José, I think because of the idea that he, is Ron Howard and there was trust there, I think José gave us this access and allowed us to, to document World Central Kitchen.
What a journey that must have been.
Yeah, no, it certainly was a journey. And again, this was pre-COVID. We actually started production prior to COVID. And at the time, we thought that we would be able to embed as a production with World Central Kitchen and whatever, natural disaster they were going to parachute into next. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. Everything sort of came to a halt, although obviously World Central Kitchen was still, very much alive and busy and working and out there providing relief for people. So it was at that moment that the project kind of shifted in focus a bit, and we were able to look at the vast archive of footage that World Central Kitchen had been able to shoot of itself over the past decade. And Ron and our team started to sort of re-envision what this project could be. And while we were able to ultimately embed quite a bit with the organization, which you see sort of in the last portion of the film, more so in the COVID segments, I would say, we really were able to look at the lifespan of an organization. And I think one that, really started out as, almost like an impulsive, passion project for José, right? Just wanting to help people, and how could he help people as a chef, to, what it's become right now. And I would say they're one of the only sort of real relief organizations that are working inside of the Ukraine right now. So it's quite powerful.
And there was amazing wealth of the archival images that you pulled, which is really great to see that whole evolution, because I think a lot of people have heard about World Central Kitchen, but didn't really know maybe how kind of almost improvisational it had formed.
Right.
You know,
like documentary filmmaking a bit.
Right. And I wonder too, like, how was that? Jose seems like a person that as soon as he hears a crisis, he's got his bags already packed and he's gone. How was that to follow him?
Well, I mean, again, I think we were following him, and it was mostly during the COVID part of our film, whereas there had been several cinematographers who had been working with World Central Kitchen over the past decade on and off. But look, like it was hard to navigate. We had to get in with his team, his office, and make sure he would let us in. And trust me, there were times where he was like, I don't want to be filmed, no. But I think that's what every great, sort of documentary DP sort of deals with, right? With
Right.
subjects that sometimes are not unwilling, but I think, they don't, I think what was important for the production is that we didn't get in the way of the mission at hand. And I think that was probably the most important thing. And to be able to really capture Jose and his team in sort of some delicate and sensitive and some reflective moments, and many of which you see throughout the film. So it's always a challenge. I think documenting anyone who is alive and, willing to be on camera, I think always comes with challenges. I think it's always a delicate dance that documentarians have to play.
Absolutely. As a budding, emerging producer myself, I know how difficult it can be. And sometimes I just want the issue or the mission to be filmed and not necessarily the behind the scenes, which we all know creates some of the more the backstory and helps audience dive into it a bit more. For those moments that you were embedded, I can imagine your team saw some pretty heartbreaking and heart-wrenching moments. How was that for your team? And when did y'all know when to turn the camera off, when to keep it on?
Like, I think we tried to keep it on as much as possible. And I think it's hard. It's hard for, I think, any documentary producer, director, DP, at sometimes you are in positions where you're watching, situations unfold that are, certainly outside of your own control. That can be really delicate and difficult. I think in this film, you've seen, certainly you see people suffering or you see people in need. And I think it's helpful to probably our own process as filmmakers to at least feel like we're doing something. And I think capturing life as it unfolds is one of the most important things you can do as a documentarian. So it was, I don't know, these projects they're always sort of tough sometimes depending on the subject matter. But look, like I think overall this project is really inspiring. And I think what World Central Kitchen does and what their volunteers do on the ground is really, it's engaging to watch, because I think it kind of rouses you up as a viewer to want to become more active yourself. And I think that's, that was certainly what Ron's, hope was for this film, that it would have that impact on audiences. And I think it does.
Absolutely.
And I would just say, like, Jose and World Central Kitchen overall were incredibly welcoming to our team. And I think they understood the value and certainly the importance of what a project like this could bring to their own mission. So it helps when you have that kind of commonality, I think, in place.
Absolutely. And actually, that was a question I did have, was that, in this kind of current stage of documentaries, impact campaigns tend to be like, it's a thing that we now think of all the time. We all, whereas maybe 10 years ago, impact producer wasn't necessarily a name or a title that we often used.
Right.
And how can this film help make those changes and inspire audiences?
Well, I mean, we're fortunate enough, obviously, to have great partners in Nat Geo Documentary Films and in Disney Plus, which is going to premiere the film on May 27th. So it'll get a very wide global audience off of Disney. And I think impact is important to Nat Geo's mission. I think there are lots of themes that this film covers. I mean, certainly the global sort of food relief effort is first and foremost. I think you see the consequences of climate change within these natural disasters that, you know, World Central Kitchen has to jump into. And I think, you know, as someone, probably Nate Mook says in our film, the CEO of the organization, that, you know, these disasters are becoming more and more frequent. Hurricane season is now almost year round. So is fire season. So I think there are issues in the film that are very much in line with issues that Nat Geo has always wanted to highlight and bring attention to. So I think there is going to be a strong campaign that aligns with the film. And I also think we have now a growing global organization in World Central Kitchen, which will also be sort of a powerful kind of, you know, voice in helping to kind of spread the word of the film. And now they have a great tool, obviously, as an organization to be able to explain to, you know, to audiences what their mission is all about. So I think we're lucky because we are one of those films that has been incredibly well supported by our network platform partner.
Absolutely. And how was it like working with Jose? He seems like a fun person to be around.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jose is always on the run. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to make some events that we have in line for the film, but we would certainly understand if he doesn't, knowing where he is right now.
Yeah.
I think it was a pleasure. I think he was incredibly supportive. I think Ron had a great relationship with him and was able to kind of push on him sensitively when we wanted to probe or we wanted to film, let's say, his family, which originally he was definitely reluctant to have a light sort of shined on his self in this project in any kind of great capacity. So I think that he was supportive, you know, but he's a huge presence and personality, which is why obviously he's been able to accomplish what he has. And a documentarian's dream, probably, in terms of subjects.
It's true. And on the same token, what's it like working with Ron Howard? I imagine he seems like he would have everything ready to go. Like he's got a formula and a plan. What is he like as a director?
Ron is probably one of the greatest human beings I've been able to encounter in my lifetime. He's so supportive. He's very collaborative. I think what was great about Ron was when Justin Wilkes and myself started Imagine Documentaries, which is a division of Imagine Entertainment, which is run by and controlled by Ron Howard and his partner Brian Grazer, and a very what's the word, a real established legacy company in Hollywood. So it was exciting to join Imagine to launch a new documentary division for them. After myself having been at a place like HBO for so many years, and Justin, my partner in this, had been at another production company, Radical Media, for so many years. So for both of us to come together to launch this new division for Ron and for Brian was really exciting. And I think for Ron, now having collaborated with him on several documentaries, we have another one in the pipeline with him, I think he comes at it with, certainly a level of experience as a director like Ron Howard would have, but also I think he is still learning documentary process, as are most documentarians, because I think with docs, I think every film, and I don't produce feature films or scripted films, but I assume every project is sort of its own challenge, its own adventure. I think the beauty of documentaries is that there is no formula for docs. You can say you have a script and you have your archive laid out and you know exactly what you're gonna piece together, but once you're in the edit, those pieces don't always fit together. And I think for Ron, working on a project like We Feed People, as well as his last project, Rebuilding Paradise, were great adventures because they were verite style. They were completely unpredictable. And, I think he would be the first one to say, wait, we don't have a script. What are we doing? you guys, are you sure this is going to end up okay? So it was really a joy to work with him because, like I said, he was just incredibly collaborative and open to process and really respectful of the team of people who were working with him, while at the same time, very much being a director of Ron, like a Ron Howard director. I mean, he knew what he wanted. He knew what he wanted to accomplish, and he knew the themes that he really wanted to hit. And of course, he's Ron Howard, so he has incredible narrative points of view and instinct about story. So it's just been really, like I said, just a great sort of career highlight to be able to collaborate with him.
It sounds very humble, and also that is the fun part, right? In documentaries, it's by the questions that you ask throughout the making, whether it's the shooting or in the editing process, that you can start to shape and create the art that's there before you. And with that being said, with all the archival imagery that your team had, and with the footage that you got by being embedded with them, how much of the story treatment or planned did you stick with, and how much ended up on the editing room floor at the very end?
I mean, it was really a process. I think we had one vision in our minds about what this project could be. And then, like I said, the pandemic hit, so we had to sort of recalibrate. And then as we dug more and more into the archive, it became a challenge to see, what are those real moments that play like scenes? Like, I mean, the beauty of the archive that we had from World Central Kitchen is that it was very much, it was shot verite style. So what were those scenes that we could create out of their archive that would advance the story, that would present new challenges for World Central Kitchen? So, for example, we definitely did not want to replicate what we saw in the Puerto Rico section in the Bahamas, because by the Bahamas, the organization was slightly more well-oiled as a machine, but they were still improvising on the ground. So what were the challenges there that we could highlight that would advance the storyline? So that became sort of a challenging process. Like, how do you piece together a trajectory and an evolution of an organization over almost a decade through these various activations that we had access to? It wasn't as if we embedded in one place and the entire film took place in New York City or in Puerto Rico. It was that we were jumping around. So how do you make that feel like a cohesive narrative that actually amounts to something? So there were a lot of challenges, I think, that we had to constantly figure out. And we had an incredible editor, or two editors. We had Andy Moriali, who's a great seasoned documentary editor. Gladys Murphy also worked on this, who's wonderful. And it really became an editor's project.
Does your team edit throughout the process?
We started quite early on because we knew we had an archive of footage to dig into.
Right. And plus the pandemic, right.
Yeah, and obviously everyone was working remotely, so there were different challenges that went with that. So on this project, I would say we started the edit quite early. Other projects you don't, because you don't have any, you don't have anything to work with in production.
Well, I would be remiss to ask you some more direct questions as you being a producer, because as a member of Brown Girls Doc Mafia and as a person still learning, what advice would you give to not just documentary producers out there, but to female producers?
I would say network, first of all, meet everyone you could possibly meet if you haven't already. I think being in, Brown Girls Doc Mafia is a great networking platform. There's obviously other ones too, the PGA and so forth. We're at Imagine Documentaries. We're incredibly accessible too. So just for anyone watching out there, feel free to reach out to me or other people at Imagine Docs. And I think know your project is really important, and know your access is even more important. I think there are times I think there is a process to developing a project. If it's a project that you have generated that you want to produce, I think make sure you have pieces in place that you could bring to a company like ours, or if you need help solidifying those pieces or confirming those pieces, do you have enough to make the idea yours? I think is really important. But also the great part about, or the great thing about where we are today as an industry is that there's so much documentary production right now between all of the networks and platforms, streamers, doc series, doc features, that producers are in very high demand. So I think just making sure that your name is in the mix is incredibly important, because there's so much work right now. So we're looking for producers all the time. If you want to send me, your bio, please do. Yeah.
Well, I heard Karen Chien's keynote at Sundance this year when she was asking for equity to be invested into producers instead of projects. And that she said that producers hold the community's distribution knowledge.
I would agree with that. And I think there are more, by the way, there are more what we call pod deals being done today, even in the documentary world, where producers are receiving resources from production companies, studios, even networks sometimes, to be able to generate ideas.
And with that being said, as a producer, what kind of stories do you look for you personally, that you can feel that you can fully delve into passionately?
I mean, I am interested in all sorts of ideas, to be honest. And I think part of what really always appeals to me as someone who works in the doc world is that I can be as excited about We Feed People as I may be about our crime scene series that we do with Joe Berlinger for Netflix, or a project about a very infamous character who I just think as a psychological study is really exciting, as someone like Jim Henson, who Ron is going to do next, who is just, I mean, the icon of icons. If you could do a dream project about a person who has been like such a creative influence and cornerstone and, innovator over the years, it would be someone like Jim Henson. So I gravitate to all sorts of ideas. I think for me, it's really about what is the access to the story. How challenging is that to obtain? And do I think we have a real path forward for the project? Can I see this finding a home somewhere is incredibly important to me. Yeah. But I love all sorts of docs. I really love verite, which I keep hoping will come back in more full force now that we're kind of inching our way, or at least living with COVID. Because I think there's nothing like, and you see it in We Feed People. I think watching real life unfold is the most powerful type of documentary out there. I think you even see it in a project like Get Back, on Disney and the Beatles. Like, I think it's extraordinary footage. Happens to be about the Beatles, who are, like probably the most iconic bands in the world. But I think it's that footage that makes that project special. If it was just another, there have been wonderful documentaries. Ron directed one about the Beatles, but I think there was something about Get Back and this wealth of footage that hadn't really been seen quite that way before. That was really exciting. So for me, I think particularly if a project has strong verite potential, that always triggers me.
I did see though, I don't think this would be verite, but I am really looking forward to seeing the doc on Judy Blume.
There is some verite of Judy in that film. Yeah,
great.
a little bit. But she actually owns and operates a bookstore down in Key West, and we were able to, even though we were still kind of in COVID times, but we were able to film with her.
That's amazing. I would love to see what books she has on the shelves.
Yeah.
I was very influenced by her as a child.
That's great. Yeah.
I also read that, and I think I read this in Wrap, that you want to make a musical documentary.
That headline is haunting me. Yeah, I mean, like I love just thinking about ways to push the form. There was a very probably esoteric documentary that was done years ago called Songbirds by Brian Hill, a filmmaker, that was maybe the closest to what I'm describing. But I think that we do look, and even at Imagine, we have produced several music documentaries. I think music is it has always been kind of part of Imagine's DNA. But I think, is there a documentary that can be done that's really unexpected, that makes a real life situation come to life somehow through song, that's not necessarily a musician's journey or a poet's journey or a lyricist's journey? Is it something about the location itself that is very rhythmic? We had one conversation with a very exciting, well-known director about this kind of idea, who brought that up. I think I just want to think of a way to do it that is inspired and seemingly different from what we've seen before. But I'm thinking about it, and we're thinking about ways to develop it. But
I do know of a village,
really
though.
Fun, and like I've said before, I think I just watched so much Encanto, like everybody else, and I have a young child, that if Lin-Manuel wanted to do a documentary, I'd be all for it.
Well, I just want to let you know that I do know of a village where people, for lack of a better word, they don't call it singing, but they sing throughout their day, and it's like a call and response.
Really?
Yeah,
it is. After the Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. I can let you know after, but it's up in the Arctic Circle, though. But I definitely was like, am I in a living musical when I was around? So
we should talk about that.
Absolutely. I'll send it your way.
Potentially produce with us.
That would be exciting. Well, I guess we are almost out of time, so I thought that this would be a great moment to just kind of let our viewers know how can they help support World Central Kitchen, and if you wanted to leave off with any other notes for our audience.
Yes, no, definitely. World Central Kitchen is so vital right now. And I think you can go to their website, wck.org. They're also on Twitter, they're on Instagram. And if you go to their social media channels or their websites, there are ways to get involved that they could direct you to. Obviously, the film is going to premiere on Disney Plus May 27th. So please spread the word if you enjoyed the film after this screening. And just thank you so much for having us. And we're really excited about this particular screening, We Feed People, and obviously bringing it out to a very wide audience.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time talking with us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to more of your projects.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was great.
Okay.